Vol King stainless steel wire mesh baskets are the number one solution for organic, proactive plant protection against burrowing rodents. Vol King stops voles in their holes. Vol King baskets are an easy one-time solution and they work throughout the life of the plant. Learn more about how Vol King's unique products protect your garden below and above ground at volking.com. That's VOLEKING.com. Colour blends are carefully choreographed blends of tulips, daffodils, and other spring flowering bulbs that take your spring display to a whole new level. Why colour blends? Top quality bulbs, the best varieties, wholesale pricing, and decades of experience. All colour blends are carefully tested, so you don't waste time and money trying to figure it out. You can order and plant colour blends bulbs with complete confidence. Place your order now, and Colour Blends will deliver at planting time this fall. Plant tulips, plant daffodils, plant colour blends. Available at colourblends.com. That's COLORBLENDS.com.
Welcome to another episode of Let's Argue About Plants, the podcast for people who love plants, but just not always the same ones. I'm Danielle Sherry. I'm the executive editor here at Fine Gardening Magazine. And so we're turning the page on a new season here in New England. And fittingly, we're also turning the page on the podcast today. Steve has moved on to other projects, and even though we're going to miss his knowledge and his wit, I am pleased to announce that Carol Collins is going to be my new co-host. Now, many of you already know Carol's voice from past guest appearances, and I'm thrilled that, though, now she'll be joining me behind the mic on a regular basis. So, welcome, Carol.
Thank you. I am thrilled to be here.
Oh, I am thrilled to have you. Okay, so fun fact, I'm going to embarrass Carol right off the start, but my husband a while ago said that the best voice on our podcast was Carol's voice when she was a guest here. So I was insulted and also very, very proud of Carol on the same page.
I don't agree.
Oh no, I do. He says she has the soothing NPR voice. So I figure that's about the highest compliment you can get.
That is high praise indeed. Yes.
So we're going to softball it today, and we're going to do a topic that, I feel like every time summer starts winding down and fall kicks in, I start thinking about bulbs. And so today we were going to talk about bulbs that are on our shopping list. Now, Carol, do you plant a lot of bulbs, Carol?
I started, yeah. And
Yeah.
The first time I planted bulbs in like a long time was 2019, right before lockdown. And I was so happy to go out there and see them every day when like the whole world was upended, right? And but there they were, they're like, welcome to spring. It's a normal spring for us. And it made me feel better.
That's so now, okay. So I have my own reasonings why I haven't planted a lot of bulbs in the past, but why hadn't you been a big bulb person up until 2019?
Deer and rodents.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it was just like, what's the point even?
Right.
Daffodils. Okay. Yes, I definitely
Yes.
had daffodils, but nothing special because I was just positive it would become food for somebody before I even saw it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, same here. I think that we've all talked about, even with our producer, Carrie, we all have vole problems. I mean, my house has become a vole supernova. It's so bad. I mean, you can literally see the tracks, through the garden where they're going, and any mitigation that I've tried to do, it's just not worth it. But I too have increased the volume of my bulb planting, I think, steadily over the past several years. And this past year, same thing. I upped my game quite a bit. Now, not before lockdown. It was during lockdown. I'm like, I'm going to order up all these bulbs. Yes, keep them coming into the shopping cart. And then I figured out I'm a lazy bulb planter, because then you got to go out there and plant all those stinkers. But I was happy that I did. But I have found by trial and error ones that the voles seem to ignore, which is going to play out in some of my selections today.
Okay.
So give me your first bulb that's on your list for this year.
The first one that I thought of is this. Okay, so I found this spring a little random daffodil, very late, very pretty. I'd never seen it before. I definitely didn't plant it. It'd been there like 10 years doing nothing, and it popped up in a part of the yard we do nothing with. So I looked, and I think what it was is yellow cheerfulness, which is an heirloom variety. Oh no, I know, a cute name too, right?
I mean, that's the best.
And I was like, you need company. So that was the first one I put on my bulb order. And I found out there is another version, just plain cheerfulness. So there's cheerfulness, which is white with a little swirly double center that's got a little yellow in it. And then yellow cheerfulness, all yellow. It like I said, it blooms late, like after all the other daffodils are done. This one will come in. Hardy zones 4 to 8, gets like 14 to 16 inches tall, multiple flowers per head, and you can plant them close together. So you can plant like 6 per square foot. And so you'll get like, I'm hoping like a bouquet of these multi-flowering heads.
Oh, that's so cool. Like sprays of almost like tiny, tiny daffodils. I'm sorry, did you say, is the actual blossom a little bit smaller too? Like a tete-a-tete size?
It's like, like that. It's sort of,
okay. Kind of in between a large daffodil and a tete-a-tete.
Yeah.
Like medium size. So cool. So cool. All right. So say the variety again, because there's just plain cheerfulness, but you think, okay, cheerfulness.
Yeah. And then the one I had is yellow cheerfulness.
Yellow cheerfulness. Okay. All right. That sounds adorable. I mean, there is something to be said for daffodils, right? I feel like that is the one bulb in the past that I have planted. And I think I've talked about it on the podcast before, where I have a thing about planting daffodil bulbs in the woods. I'm in a really heavily wooded area, and I like it because they pop up in spring when the trees haven't leafed out yet. So of course they get plenty of sun and enough sun to pop up. And then when the foliage starts kind of melting out after they bloom, everything from the woodlands kind of overtakes it. The skunk cabbage fills in and the ferns fill in. And so I don't have to worry about trying to mask that ugly foliage afterwards. And the deer don't eat them. So that's awesome. Well, I'm going to roll the dice on a tulip. So I figure if I'm going to plant it, if I maybe plant it close to my house, wishful thinking. If I plant it close enough to the house, maybe the deer won't eat it. And the thing that's always bummed me out about tulips is I find their foliage really ugly. It's kind of this floppy, greenish. They're never really stable. They kind of burn out on the ends by the time they start blooming. But I found this tulip called Unicum tulip, and it's a Tulipa praestans unicum. And it's variegated. The foliage is variegated. So it's got very, very sturdy, spoonbill-like foliage, which is a glaucous blue-green that you typically see with tulips, but then a fairly wide white, yellow, creamy margin outlining each and every single one of the leaves. So bonus, I love that. Now it looks really cool because it's got this really unique variegation of the foliage. And then it has a really beautiful lipstick red kind of fluted flower to it. This is a shorty too. This is only 12 inches tall and wide. So this is going to, stay, in the species tulip range. And like species tulips, it naturalizes apparently over time. So you'll get kind of, this nice matte, if the deer don't eat it, mat of unicum tulips. And that really appealed to me, getting something that, the foliage is actually doing something too. That'll also help me out too when the deer go by and eat the buds before the flowers actually open up. It'll give me joy still.
Oh my goodness. I hope they don't eat it. It sounds too pretty to eat.
I know, it does. All right, Carol. So what's next up on your list?
So I also have a tulip, and it is a species tulip, and that is because, like you said, they're a little hardier. They tend to perennialize a little better, and I've got quite a few species tulips coming, but the one I'm really excited about is a Candia tulip, Tulip saxatilis or saxatilis, um, and it's zones 5 to 10, which I think is
Oh,
unusual, and it's because it's native to like the Greek islands and Turkey. So this is good for us, but also good for people in hotter zones that don't get a real winter, because that's what its native habitat is like.
cool.
Pale lavender, or like rosy lavender, sometimes yellow center, gets about a foot tall,
Oh.
um, but I don't know if it's deer resistant. Probably not. Like you, I'm going to put it close to the house and just hope the deer are too scared to come eat it.
Yeah. So does this guy stay relatively short?
Yeah, like a foot tall.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah.
Those are so cute. Those species tulips. They're really, you know, if you're thinking of tulips and you've got a picture in your mind, listeners, throw that out the window. These species tulips are just so much cooler. A lot of times you'll actually see them in rock gardens and such early in spring, and they're fantastic, and they're not those. I hate to say this, I'm going to get hate mail now. They're not those really, really gaudy, in your face, flowers that are bright orange and they're the size of a softball and they whack you over the face with, hey, it's spring. These are delicate and petite and lovely. But did the deer bother your other species tulips, Carol?
So this is going to be my first year planting, so it is remaining to be seen. But I ordered a mix, and so because I don't know what I'm going to like, and I don't know what's going to work, so I thought I'll order a mix that the supplier does, and then I'll see what sort of rises to the top.
I like that idea. I like that idea a lot. All right, I'm gonna get in trouble, but I put a tuber on the list. Don't get mad at me. But I feel like, we were talking about, bulbs that are on your shopping list, and there's so many tubers or corms and, fleshy rooted plants that are sold at the same time in the same bulb catalogs, in the same bulb websites. And this one just kept jumping out at me, and it's climbing lily, which is Gloriosa superba. Now, I should not grow this for 8 million different reasons. One, it's not hardy here. It's zones 8 to 10, but it's so stinking cool. It looks like lily foliage. So you've got those bright green stems and the bright green alternating leaves that are kind of strappy. But at the tips of each one of these leaves are these little tendrils that latch on and grab a hold of things and kind of allow this climbing lily, to scramble up a trellis or, a very sturdy hedge. That's what I think that I'm going to grow it on. I've got this kind of hedged area of 9-bark, and I'm like, oh, that would be pretty if it was climbing up through it. And like its other common name, which is flame lily, the flowers look like a flame. They're bright red, singular petals, kind of a deconstructed tulip look, reddish, and then in the center is yellow. You kind of get this boss of yellow in the center of it. Now, this is technically a tuber. They call it a fleshy tuber. Was there ever a worse description? A fleshy tuber? Yes. Sign me up. But it gets 6 to 8 feet in a season, and it's something for me. I feel like I would treat almost like a dahlia tuber, where I'd have to unearth it and then, just kind of store it in a cool, dry place, either in peat moss or some shredded, newspaper or something like that, and then replant next year. Or I could do the typical Danielle, where I throw it in the ground, I forget about it, and then I just have to rebuy it next year. But yeah, and this is summer blooming too. So, you're going to plant this still when early next spring for me, because it's not hardy where I am. and it's going to start blooming in the summer instead of, in the spring when most of these other bulbs I'm going to talk about and you're going to talk about bloom. I just want to put a little star every place that I read about this lily, and even one of our contributors, Paula Gross, mentioned this fact when she was talking to me about this particular plant. This is toxic. This is a toxic plant if it's eaten. So, if you've got voracious kids and or puppies, which I do, so I'm going to have to wall it off somehow. This probably isn't the plant for you, but this is a climbing lily, and it's really stinking cool. Okay, Carol, what's up next for you?
So I love that lily. So I've got a mix next, and it is Reticulated Iris. It's John Sheeper's Shades of Blue. And I just love having them pick a variety so that I can see what this species has to offer. I've had a few. This is the bulb that got me back into planting bulbs in 2019. I had seen multiple authors recommend Reticulated Iris, and the second time I saw it, I was like, I am ordering it. I actually literally got online and ordered 3 random varieties, planted them, forgot about them. And then the next time I saw them, we were like entering lockdown, and it was like, this purely joyful experience. So I'm always going to have a soft spot in my heart for Reticulated Iris. They have come back beautifully, those original ones that I planted. So I know they're reliably perennial. They're little. And when people think about iris, I think they're imagining the taller, like Siberian iris or bearded iris. These little guys are only 4 to 6 inches tall. And they're hardy to zones 5 to 9. So my Vermont friends were disappointed to learn they're not super, super hardy, but pretty hardy. And the Shades of Blue mix has, I think, 6 different varieties ranging from the palest blue to like this purple that's almost black. So I like the idea of being surprised. Like, you don't know what a particular plant is going to be until it flowers. So I'm going to put them all in together and then just see what happens.
I love that. A little serendipity going on there. Now, I recently feel like I saw a picture. Oh, I think we had done a ground covers video where you were actually featuring the Angelina sedum that you had. But that was yours, right? And there was Reticulated Iris early in the spring popping up through it.
Yes, I would highly recommend that combo. The Angelina does not keep the Reticulated Iris from blooming. They both like the same conditions, like hot and dry most of the time. So that was another little bit of serendipity, though, just sort of happened.
It was so beautiful because the Angelina sedum in the photo that you took. Now, sorry, everybody, you can go online and watch our most recent video that we posted to finegardening.com is on low care ground cover. So watch the video so you can see that in action. But the Angelina sedum in your garden, it was obviously, it had taken on that kind of reddish cast because of the cold. And the Reticulated Iris was just like picking up on that like red and purple hues. It was beautiful. Really, really nice.
Yeah, fun combo. Yeah.
It made me jealous. It definitely made me jealous. So one bulb that I have pretty religiously planted over my gardening career has been Alliums. I love Alliums. I think there's such a variety in that genus where, you can get the tallest ones that, are the size of toddlers. And then, I visited a garden this spring where there were even taller ones. There was one, I think it was called like Ghost White, where this was an Allium that was almost 7 feet tall. It was so, so beautiful. And then there's shorter ones, and there's drumstick alliums, and then there's Allium ceruleum, which is bright blue. And I have found that alliums seem, knock on wood, to be vole proof. They seem to leave the alliums alone. Now, I'm not sure because they're in obviously the onion family and they take a little nibble out of it and decide, ew, that's gross. Or they do have kind of an odor to them of onions. Maybe that's why they've left them alone. We're probably going to get people who write in and say, They eat my allium bulbs. So I don't think there's any such thing as a vole-proof bulb, but alliums come pretty close for me. I tend to do ones that are average size. I have Purple Sensation. I do the Christophi, which is the giant one, but it's kind of smaller in stature, but it looks like, a supernova when it blooms. But there's one that I found that you grow it equally for its foliage and for its flower, and that's Turkestan allium. It's Allium carataviense, and it zones 4 to 8. And it's a Honey I Shrunk the Kids allium. It has these big, fat, glaucous blue leaves, and they actually stay green while it's in bloom. They don't fade out and yellow out like a lot of other alliums do. It stays intact with this beefy, beefy leaves. And then it's almost like it doesn't have enough effort to push the blossom up high, because the blossom just kind of nests itself at only a few inches above the foliage. So it looks like an egg sitting in a nest. And the blossom is pretty large. It's about a 6-inch diameter, light lavender blossom that's spherical, completely spherical, and then kind of freeze dries like that when they, go past bloom. Alliums really hold that skeletonized seed head. And it's just a really cool looking bulb. So as I said, it's maybe it's vole proof. I don't want to go that far, but it's definitely vole resistant. And that's a pretty wide zonal range too for alliums, 4 to 8. I'll say the big thing with alliums, they just don't like wet winter feet. So they do need pretty decent drainage, because they have a tendency to rot if they're in a low spot. So that's a lesson that I learned the hard way several times. But yeah, so that's Turkestan allium, and it's Allium carataviense. That's definitely on the list.
Sounds cool.
Do you do alliums, Carol? I feel like you do.
I have a few that have been given to me over the years, and I think most of them have come back. So I don't think the voles are getting them. But I have had voles eat other oniony things, so it's not a fail-safe thing.
So there goes my theory. Have they chewed on stuff in the vegetable garden, like actual garlic or onion sets or something?
Yeah, real Egyptian walking onion in particular. I had a whole bed of it cleared out, and you go and you pull on the top, and the bottom is gone, so you know who it is. Right? No, you again.
The offender. All right. So there goes that idea. All right. Well, maybe it might be vole-ish, resistant-ish.
Yeah. And like I said, I have had some come back. This might be one they find to be distasteful.
Okay. But here's hoping. Okay, Carol. So this is your last opportunity, your last bulb. What is filling out your shopping basket online?
So I picked a crocus, another one of those quintessential spring bulbs, and I've grown these, and I know the critters don't eat them. Pickwick. It's a little white. Actually, it's the large Dutch iris, so Crocus vernus, but it's white with these purple pinstripes. Just adorable. It's like Tim Gunn from Project Runway would plant this plant. It's just it's so fashionable, and
I love that.
So 4 to 6 inches tall, zones 3 to 9. You can plant them. It says 4 inches apart, but I'm a lazy bulb planter too, so I tend to just make a slot with my transplanting shovel and put 3 or 4 of them in each slot so that I don't have to dig too many holes. And it seems to work. This is a naturalizer, according to what I've read. So I'm hoping that Mr. Pickwick will be happy in my garden for years to come.
That it's almost a play on the traditional crocus, right? Because I think of the traditional crocus as purple with sometimes a very, very slight white to it. So this is white. It flips it on its head, and it's white with the purple pinstripe. I love that Tim Gunn would plant this.
Make it work.
Make it work. Yeah, that is also a good tip too with the planting of bulbs. I feel like they're very forgiving for lazy gardeners, especially smaller bulbs. Crocuses, their bulbs are pretty tiny. We're talking smaller than a quarter, maybe dime or nickel size. So, kind of, I call it trough planting. You kind of scrape it away, sprinkle it in, and then cover it back over with some dirt. That's the easy way to do it. I can't, there's these people that were up near the office, near the fine gardening offices, that would seed their lawn with crocus. And it was right on Main Street. Did you ever see that lawn? It was the most beautiful thing in spring.
Yeah.
But I don't know how they did it. I mean, they must have a lot of children where they just had the kids go out and like poke holes and plant all those crocuses throughout the entire lawn to get that effect. I don't have that patience.
I have heard a tip that if you're the type of person that gets your lawn aerated, the thing that cuts the plugs, right after that, run in, plant bulbs, little tiny bulbs in those holes, and then stick a plug back down into it. And supposedly that's an easy way to plant a lot of them really fast.
Brilliant. That is brilliant. I might have to use that. Not that I aerate my lawn, but I would buy an aerator just to be able to plant my bulbs. My lawn, my patch of crabgrass, basically. Well, we didn't plan this, but my final plant is a crocus too. And it's orange monarch crocus, which is Crocus oliveri subspecies Balanaceae, zones 3 to 9. And I can't believe I picked an orange flower, because I was thinking about it, and I think I only have in my entire property one other plant that flowers orange, and I think that's Gibraltar azalea. And it kind of doesn't count because I have it planted in the woods. But there's something about orange where it kind of counteracts that sea of pastels in the early spring that we get, that flush of early spring ephemerals and even early blooming shrubs, all are in that pastel-y range. So this shock of orange intrigues me. It intrigued me enough that I have to buy this crocus. And again, this is also a John Sheepers, which we could not highly recommend enough for purchasing bulbs. They are not sponsoring this, but they're really, really, really a good source for bulbs. But they have this, and to describe it, I guess I would just say it looks like the wings of a monarch butterfly. I mean, it is bright, bright orange, and then towards the throat of the actual crocus is blackish, dark blue, plum colored, whenever the light kind of hits it. And it's just absolutely stunning. And like you said, they do naturalize. This is a baby. It only gets to be about 4 to 6 inches tall. So this is a tiny petite bulb, but this is also early spring, and I feel like a lot of the other bulbs that at least I talked about, tulips are mid-season, mid-spring. I already said the glorioso or the climbing lily is summer. So, this was one that, for that early spring color, you get that shock of color. And I also love that crocuses will take more shade than a lot of other bulbs. They'll actually do pretty well in partial shade to even, nearing full shade. If you've got a spot like that, they tend to do okay with that. So that was orange monarch crocus. And I saved it for last, but I think it's the first thing I'm putting in my shopping cart.
Very good. And shop early, people. Oh my goodness. These things are going to sell out this year. I just have a feeling.
Yes, that is such a good tip. Absolutely. Shop early, shop often. And now, because everything sounds better with a British accent, here's Peter to discuss his thoughts on bulbs.
Ah, the lowly bulb. Has there ever been a humbler-looking structure in the gardening world? Now, I'm not one to cast judgments based on appearances alone, but many bulbs are, rather odd-looking. They remind me of the time I attempted to make scones, and things went terribly wrong. Some bulbs aren't all that awful. Daffodil bulbs look like anemic shallots, so I suppose that's not too bad. A hyacinth bulb, on the other hand, looks like a red onion that got lost for many months at the back of the pantry, identifiable only by its slight purplish hue. And then there's the anemone bulb, a rounded, blackish-brown pellet, to which I will draw no comparisons because this is, after all, a family show. Things just get weirder from there too. because within the world of bulbs there are, of course, corms, rhizomes, and the strangest of them all, the fleshy tuber. If you want to gaze upon something truly suited for Atlas obscura, check out the Google images of a foxtail lily tuber. Oh, a chill just ran down my spine. But for all the ugliness below ground, bulbs save their best for the above-ground display. Who would ever guess that such a delightful array of blues, reds, oranges and yellows could spring forth from such a humble start? This, my friends, is why bulb catalogues are filled with photos of the blossoms produced by bulbs, because no one wants to look at 50 pages of anemic shallots, or worse. Happy shopping.
So Peter's really got it in for bulbs. He kind of finds them a little bit ugly. I certainly hope that, our expert is a little more positive on the bulb end of things.
I bet he will be. Joseph Tykonovich loves bulbs.
Let's see what he's got to say about his favorites.
Hey, this is Joseph Tykonovich. I'm a frequent contributor to Fine Gardening and the author of a few books, including Rock Gardening, Reimagining a Classic Style, and The Comic Book Guide to Growing Food. And today I'm going to share with you some bulbs that are on my shopping list. So my shopping list for bulbs this year is a little bit different because I just moved. As I'm recording this, I have been in my new house for 2 days. So I have a brand new garden, and my shopping list is really focused on my must-have bulbs, the plants that I just can't imagine not having next spring because I just love them so much and I need to plant them in every garden. So I'm really thinking about what are my top plants, and then I'll be buying more in future years once I figure out what my garden looks like and where I'm going to plant things. But right now I just know there's a few things I have to have, and I'll plunk them in somewhere, and if I have to move them later, I will. So first on my list is a crocus, and I love crocuses, and I just moved from my previous garden down in Virginia up to northern Indiana, so I'm going from a very mild winter climate where camellias bloomed all winter back up to where I grew up kind of, and where we have long, cold, snowy winters. And after a long, cold, snowy winter, I need crocuses. I desperately need crocuses. I think for a lot of people, it's snowdrops that is, because they are the first bloomers. But for me, snowdrops never really done anything for me. They're kind of boring, but crocuses are my early bloomer that just have my heart. I really love just after the snow melts and they finally burst out in the spring. And my favorite crocus is definitely Crocus thomasinianus ruby giant. So Crocus thomasinianus is, I think, one of the most vigorous of the species of crocuses, one of the earliest bloomers, and the most resistant to squirrels and other rodents that want to eat the bulbs. They're not like squirrel proof, but squirrels are definitely less attracted to them than they are to most crocuses. And the regular species kind of has soft lavender flowers that are pretty small, and it's a little bit unexciting, I think. But the variety Ruby Giant is just, to me, practically the perfect crocus because the flowers are larger than regular Thomasinianus. They're a rich, deep, saturated purple, and they're kind of that perfect crocus purple for the spring. And it's also a really vigorous plant. I'm going to order probably a couple hundred of them, and then over the next few years, they'll multiply and spread and just make these great sheets of perfect purple goblets in the early spring. So I need daffodils, of course, and there's a lot of wonderful daffodils in the world, but I'm going to start with just my absolute favorite daffodil. And if you'd asked me my favorite daffodil even just a couple years ago, I would have said it's the variety Thalia, which is a wonderful daffodil and I still love very much. But it has actually shifted down to number 2 on my favorite list, maybe even number 3. And my new number 1 is a variety called Moonlight Sensation, and I'm just nuts about this variety. I grew it for the first time just a couple years ago, and it's now on my do or die, every garden will have it list. So it's a later blooming variety, and it's one of the multi-flowered varieties. So instead of one big bloom on a stem, it comes up with a cluster of 5 or 6 flowers on each flowering stem. And each bulb will put up 3 to 4 flowering stems. So that adds up to a really incredible floral display. I planted a mass of these in my last garden, and when they bloomed in the spring, it was just like a solid sheet of blooms. Just absolutely incredible flower display. And the other thing I love about it is the color. It's the softest, palest, almost white, like a soft, delicate cream. It's just a really beautiful color. And it's one of those colors that goes with everything, which is great because I'm going to plant a bunch of these in a new garden, and who knows what bulbs may be already in the ground. It looks like the garden's gone to weeds, but I'm sure there's some daffodils or something hiding out in there. But whatever does come popping up next spring unexpectedly, I know that these daffodils will look beautiful with it because it's a wonderful color that just complements everything. finally, I need a tulip. I think, a crocus, a tulip, and a daffodil, those are kind of the big three for bulbs and the things that I have to have in every garden. I like all kinds of tulips. I really do love tulips, but I tend to lean towards the species tulips. So the big hybrid varieties are very tall and loud and beautiful, but they don't tend to perennialize very well. They kind of bloom great one year and then fade out over subsequent years. But the species varieties are a little shorter, more compact, and they tend to perennialize a lot better. And I think my favorite tulip is the variety Tulip Baddelini Bright Gem. So Tulip Baddelini is a little variety, gets maybe 6 inches tall. And the leaves have a really beautiful kind of silver color to them, which I really like. It's a nice feature to have really attractive leaves to go with the beautiful flowers. And the variety Bright Gem has soft yellow flowers that blush to kind of a soft orange or apricot as the flowers age. Just beautiful. And the shape of the bloom is kind of that classic tulip shape, with the classic tulip goblet form that you sort of, if you're drawing in a kid's drawing of tulips, the shape you would draw is exactly the shape of a Tulip Baddelini bloom. So it's like a classic tulip, but shrunk down to a little miniaturized form in this beautiful, delicate color. And it's been a pretty good vigorous perennializer for me that's actually spread and multiplied even in less than ideal conditions. And now that I'm back in the north where tulips love to grow and I have sandy soil, which tulips also really love, I'm really thinking it's going to settle in well and spread and multiply and make a better display for me each year. So those are my 3 top things that are on my bulb shopping list this year, the favorite varieties that I've just got to have and I will be enjoying when they bloom next spring.
So Joseph picked a crocus too, only he went the opposite end of us. He went for like a ginormous blooming one.
Sounds really cool, doesn't it?
It really does. I mean, now I'm going to have to find more money because I'm going to have to add in his bulbs to my list now too. We're going to get broke, Carol. We're going to be broke.
Gonna need a bigger bulb order.